So this book is intended for the beginner in Tajweed, okay? And the term beginner is used loosely as it still requires him or her to at least be familiar with the letters of the Arabic alphabet, right? So you should be able to recognize, of course, alif, ba, ta, and this is covered in the other course. So if you do not know how to recognize the letters or read the letters, then I advise you taking obviously that class, inshallah. So the book here aims at equipping the students with all the basic rules and theories of Tajweed, and therefore there won't be too many examples, but however, we will be using another book, inshallah, which will have a lot of application involved as well, okay? All right, just go down here. So this is a first series, this is a first in a series of books. So basically the authors have made like a syllabus on teaching Tajweed, starting off with this book, and then moving on to Tuhfatul Atfal and Al-Jazariya. If you've heard of those books, those are more advanced books, inshallah. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us, perhaps we can teach those later on, inshallah, as well. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna stop right there. And I want this to be, a little bit interactive here as well, inshallah. So let's see, I just wanna play around with this here and see, okay. All right, okay. Someone asked, will we get a copy of this book? Yes, inshallah, we'll send the copy out. We have a PDF, inshallah, we can send it out, no problem. Okay. So obviously when you're revising, you can go back to the book at your own time. Okay. So can someone tell me what Tajweed means? What do you think Tajweed means? Does it mean a good voice? Read with a good voice? Does it mean to read correctly?
Assalamualaikum. Does it mean recitation?
Recitation, okay, that's one answer. We have another, okay, we have some answers here now. So someone said correct pronunciation, recitation, proper pronunciation. Okay, so a lot of proper pronunciation, okay. All right, so let's see what the author says here. So Tajweed, okay, so understand this, that when you're learning anything, basically, there is a linguistic meaning, okay, and then there's a technical meaning to it as well, okay. So Tajweed, literally or linguistically, when we look at the Arabic, Tajweed, all right, it comes from, so it's like ta, jim, waw, ya, dal. It comes from the root letters. In Arabic, we go back to the root letters from jim, waw, dal, okay, which means to do something good, to do something well, okay. So that's the literal definition, the linguistic definition, okay. By the way, if it's kind of boring now, right, just let me know, inshallah. But inshallah, it should get more interesting because it'll be more interactive and you'll have exercise and so on and so forth. But in the beginning, these are definitions and so on and so forth, which are very important, right, to learn. Because if you're learning about anything, you should know, a few things about that science before, right? So for example, we have the science of fiqh, right, which means jurisprudence. So it pertains to the laws, right? Is something halal? Is it something haram? Is this allowed? Is this not allowed, right? And then we have hadith, which is the science of narration, right? And so on and so forth. So Tajweed literally, linguistically means to do something well. Okay. Now, technically, and again, technically, this is according to the Qurra. When we say Qurra, it means the scholars of Tajweed in this field, okay, of Tajweed and Qira'at. So technically, it means to pronounce every letter from its point or place of origin, which is the makhraj, along with its sifat. That's it. Tajweed is, and there's some charts here, inshallah, we'll get to it as well. But Tajweed means to pronounce everything from its makhraj, so where the letter comes from. So for example, if I say ba, where does ba come from? Ba, from the lips. Ha comes from the throat. So that's the makhraj along with its sifat, with its quality or characteristic, okay? And we'll get more into this, obviously, but for example, is the letter thick? Is it heavy or is it light? Okay, so the letter lam in the word Allah, Allah, it's heavy, right? Or for example, lillah, it's light. So Tajweed, again, technically, is know the makhraj, where the letter comes from, along with its quality, okay? like we have water, the quality may be hot, it may be cold, right? As an example. Okay, what's the subject matter of Tajweed? So obviously we're going to discuss the letters of Arabic alphabet. And this is why if you want to learn Arabic in the future, very important to learn Tajweed, right? As the scholars say that, the two sciences which you should pay most attention to in the beginning is Tajweed, because we have to recite the Quran in our prayers. Outside of prayer, we have to know how to recite it properly, number one, right? And they also say fiqh, right? Because we need to pray. So in order to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to learn how to pray. And of course, before that, how to make wudu and etc. and so on. Okay. Is everything clear so far? Please, if you can just write in the chat quickly. Everything is clear. Just write yes, no, any questions. If you have any questions, just ask any time in the chat box. That's not a problem. Okay. All right, alhamdulillah, everything is good. Okay. Okay. Now, what is the ruling or the hukum of Tajweed? So the ruling means, like in terms of Islam, right? In terms of, is it something which is fard? Fard means, is it a must? Is it something which is mustahab, something which is preferable, or so on? So the ruling is, it is fard kifaya to learn all the rules of Tajweed, but it is fard ayn to recite the Quran with Tajweed. Okay. So what is fard kifaya? I'm just going to move this box here so I can see. There we go. So fard kifaya means that if at least one person in the community performs it, the responsibility will fall away from the rest of society. But if no one performs it, the whole community will be answerable for its negligence. So that means we must have some group of scholars, or a few, who are able to teach the science of Tajweed. Okay, and this goes for any science. Fard ayn means that it's required upon every single individual. So what does it say here? That it's fard kifaya to learn all the rules of Tajweed, but it's fard ayn to recite the Quran with Tajweed. So that means that everyone must recite with Tajweed. Okay, but it's only fard kifaya, right? We must have at least a few individuals to teach it. Okay. Now we can understand this in the opposite way as well. So let's say, mashallah, you're all here, you're trying to learn the science of Tajweed. Inshallah, have an intention to teach it to others around you, your family members, and inshallah, those around you as well. We may have some teachers here as well, right? So we can understand it the opposite way as well, that let's say you go somewhere and there's no one who can teach Tajweed, right? And you go and learn Tajweed for the sake of teaching and transmitting this knowledge, then inshallah, you will get the reward of everyone there as well. Right? So we can understand it like that as well. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to understand Tajweed properly and give us the tawfiq to transmit this knowledge properly, inshallah. Okay. What's the benefit of learning Tajweed? Obviously, we're protecting ourselves from making mistakes in the Quran, right? Okay, now mistakes are two types, okay? So we have lahan jali, which is a clear error, and lahan khafi, which is a hidden error. Now, by the way, if some of these Arabic terminologies are difficult, don't worry about that. There are a few terms you should know, and we're going to repeat them again, inshallah, so it will stick with you, okay? But I do want you to know these terminologies which I'm pointing out. For example, tajweed, fard kifaya, fard ayn, right? Makhraj, sifat, and we'll get to that. Okay, so lahan literally means a mistake. Okay, lahan means a mistake. It can also have different meanings in Arabic, like lahan can be like a tune, for example. But in this context, it means a mistake. And then we have jali and khafi. Jali is a clear error, and khafi is a hidden error. Okay. Can someone tell me before I proceed, what do you think a clear error would be, and what would a hidden error be? You can unmute your mic and you can respond as well, inshallah, or you can write in the chat box, not a problem. So what do you think a clear error would be, a lahan jali? Is it someone has their hand up? Is it Sister Maryam? Okay, so someone wrote in the chat, Brother Hassan, clear error is pronouncing a word wrong, okay? All right, so let's see what the author says. So lahan again means error, jali is clear, khafi is hidden. it is called lahan jali, which is a clear error because it's clear to everyone that they're making a mistake. So for example, let's say you're reciting Surah Al-Fatiha and someone says, Alhamdulillahi, right? Right away, everyone's going to say, no, hold on a second, that's wrong. So that's a clear error, a clear mistake. What's the ruling? It's haram, it's prohibited to recite the Quran with lahan jali on the condition, there's a condition, that the qari is aware that he or she is making lahan jali and that he or she is making no effort to correct his or her recitation. So very important that, let's say someone is trying to recite the Quran, they're trying to get better, right? But they're making mistakes. Then, will they be sinful or not? Then obviously, if they're trying, they're making an effort, inshallah, then, it's hoped that they will not get sin for it. But let's say this refers to someone who doesn't care, okay? So they're just going about their day, years go by, and they have not even tried to fix the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha, right? Surah Al-Fatiha, as we know, it's a must to recite properly in the salah, right? Otherwise, the salah is not valid. So there are basically 4 ways in which lahan jali can take place. Adding a letter. So someone says, Alhamdulillahi, they add a waw. Or you drop a letter and you say, Lam yalid wa lam yulad, as opposed to yulad. So you drop the waw. Or you change a letter and you say, Alhamdulillahi, as opposed to Alhamdulillahi, a ha and not a ha, which is a common mistake. Another one is, for example, some will say the kaf as opposed to qaf, right? Okay, and then you have changing a harakah. So someone says Alhamdulillahi as opposed to Alhamdulillah. So those are clear errors. Does everyone understand? Please just write in the chat box. What's happening here? Someone is writing here, drawing here. I don't know. Okay. Okay, clear. Alhamdulillah. Let's move forward. If you have any questions, please ask. So if someone is writing here, if they can just remove this, I'm not sure how to get rid of this. Okay. So lahan khafi, the hidden error is when the qari makes a mistake in the temporary characteristics, sifat arida in the letters. So we'll get to that, inshallah. But as an example, let's say someone doesn't stretch the mad. Okay, so they say, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ, as opposed to بِمَا أُنزِلَ. Or they don't say the ikhfa, they say unzila and not unzila. Okay, so those are lahan khafi, hidden error. Why is it called hidden? Because it's hidden or obscure to most people listening to the recitation. And only after studying tajweed will they know these mistakes. Okay, what's the ruling? It's makruh, it's disliked to recite the Quran. Again, the condition that the qari means reciter, that the reciter is aware that they're making lahan khafi and they're making no effort to fix it, right? So it's only a mistake, it's only sinful if the person knows they're making a mistake and they're making no effort to fix or rectify it. And by the way, nowadays, alhamdulillah, we have so many teachers online, offline, everywhere. So everyone is able to learn tajweed, right? So we just need to take some time out, inshallah. And this is one, we're using this platform as well, inshallah, trying to benefit. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow, this to be beneficial to everyone, inshallah. Okay, things to know, we'll go over this very quickly. So harakat are vowel signs, okay? So they're like the fatha, dhamma, kasra, so the a, I, u, right? Or for example, they'll say zabar, zair, pesh, right? The a, I, u sounds are called harakat, the vowels. Then we have sukun, which is the absence of a haraka. So we have fatha, the line above, kasra, the line below, the dhamma, the small vowel. Does everyone know? I'm sure you must be familiar with these, right? But it's just a review here, right? So fatha makes a, kasra makes I, dhamma makes u, you round your lips. So the sign indicating the absence of haraka is written above it, and it's called sukun. Now, the letter which has a haraka is called mutaharrik. And if it has sukun, it's called sakin, okay? So if something has a letter, has a haraka, it's called mutaharrik. And if it has a sukun, it's called sakin. Now, these terms, maybe we're going to be referring to them later on, so it's good to know them. The shadda or tashdid is when you double the letter. So for example, look here, marra, okay? Marra, right? So the ra has the shadda or tashdid. So it's doubled. You have the meme and then you have two ra's. The first ra is sakin, which means it bears a sukoon. And the second ra is mutaharrik, which means it has a haraka. So marra. Another example is dabba, the doubling of the, or the two bas. Tanween is basically double fatha, double kasra, or double dhamma. So instead of writing the noon with a sukoon every time, so look here, rahmatan, there are two fathas, tanween. As opposed to writing with a noon sukoon, you can just put two fathas. Malakun, two dhammas, just instead of writing with a noon sukoon, two dhammas. Siyamin, two kasras, as opposed to the noon sukoon, or the noon sakin. Obviously, the Arabs did this because every time, they were writing, you don't want to keep, you don't want to continuously write the noon sakin every time. So they made it easy and they put the tanween there. Okay, everything clear so far, inshallah. Any questions so far? Please ask. I know we're just a basic introduction, but very important. Okay, we have 3 yeses. Can I please get more responses so I know others are understanding as well?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, please. Yes.
I started late. Is this being recorded? Can I listen to the beginning again? I just joined it now.
Yes, it is being recorded. Yeah.
So will it be sent to us, or do we have to log in to get to it?
I'm not sure about the details, but I'm sure there will be something sent out, inshallah.
Shukran jazeelan.
Yeah. Okay, everything clear, alhamdulillah. Now, okay, so we have isti'adha and basmala here. Can I just get, okay, let's see. How long does this class go for? Is it just 1 hour?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, inshallah. So we can perhaps, let's see here. If we get into this topic here, we might not have enough time for the practical, but let's see, inshallah. Let's start. Bismillah. Okay. So we have isti'adha and basmala. Isti'adha means to seek refuge or protection. So when you're reciting the Quran, you must recite A'udhu billahi minash shaytanir rajim before reciting the Quran. Okay. The basmala is to recite the basmala. So it's a short form. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. We recite this in the beginning of each surah. Some terms to know. We have fasl means to separate. Wasl means to join. Al-awwal is first, al-thani is second, and al-kull or al-jami' means everything. So when we're talking about the isti'adha and basmala, the reciter will find themselves in one of 3 situations. So you open the Quran, you're going to find yourself in one of 3 situations. Either you start your recitation at the beginning of the surah, so let's say beginning of Surah Al-Fatiha, or you start your recitation in the middle of the surah, or you've already finished one surah and you're starting the next surah. Understood? So either you start at the beginning of the surah, middle of the surah, you finish one surah and move on to the next. Now, let's go to the first scenario. What's the first scenario? The first scenario is you're starting at the beginning of the surah. Okay. So you're going to have basically 4 ways of reciting. Number 1, waslul kull, joining everything. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين. Joining everything. Isti'adha, basmala, and the beginning of the surah. So أعوذ بالله, the Bismillah, and the beginning of the surah. Number 2, وصل الأول فصل الثاني. You join the first and disconnect or separate the second. So what does that mean? Joining the first is joining the isti'adha and basmala and separating the beginning of the surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Stop. الحمد لله رب العالمين. By the way, when you're reciting the different ayat, after each ayat you should stop and take a breath. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Take a breath. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. Stop, take a breath. If you do not take a breath, what is it called? It's called sect. So that means, what is a sect? And we'll get into this. A secta is basically you're continuing without a breath, or you stop without a breath. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. and then you don't breathe and you continue. So that's wrong, okay? Now, keep in mind here that obviously there are certain places in the Quran, 4 according to Hafs, the way we're reciting, where we do sakt, right? But this is something good to keep in mind, because when we're reciting in prayer, sometimes quickly, we say Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. And you're reciting the 3-4 ayat without taking a breath, right? How many of us do this unconsciously? Okay, so that's wrong. So if you do not want to stop after each ayah and take a breath, you can join. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin. Stop, take a breath, and then carry on. Okay. So that was the first and second way. Number 3 is separating everything. Easy. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. Okay. Number 4 is فصل الأول وصل الثاني. So separate for the first from the second. That is separating the isti'adha from the basmala, and then joining the second to the surah. So you separate the first, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, and then join. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله. Okay? All of these 4 ways are permissible. So recap quickly. You join everything. Join the isti'adha, join the basmala, join the beginning of the surah. Number 1. Number 2, separate everything. That's the opposite, right? Say A'udhu Billah, stop. Bismillah, stop. Alhamdulillah, stop. Or what's the other way? Join the first, disconnect the second. Join Isti'adha, Basmala, stop, and then carry on. Or say the first, A'udhu Billah, stop, and then join the Basmala to the beginning of the surah. Is that clear so far? Please let me know. Okay, good. Alhamdulillah. Any questions? You can ask anytime, inshallah. You can ask anytime, that's fine. Sometimes I may not respond right away, but I will, inshallah, once I look at the chat. Number 2, the second situation, there are also 4 possible ways of reciting. What's the second scenario? Someone tell me quickly. First scenario was, I'm beginning at the beginning of the surah. I'm starting at the beginning of the surah. Second scenario is?
Starting in the middle of the surah.
Very good, mashallah, middle of the surah. So there's also 4 possible ways, okay? However, 2 are preferred. 2 are preferred, okay? Number 1, you disconnect everything, very simple, right? So, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. Or the example, ذلك الكتاب. I start in the middle of the surah. Number 2, وصل الأول فصل الثاني. So you join isti'adha basmala and separate the basmala from the middle of the surah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. Okay? So in this situation, وصل الكل and فصل الثاني is not advised for the beginner. So وصل الكل is joining everything. Okay? And فصل الأول is stopping after the isti'adha and joining the basmala to the beginning of the middle of the surah. Why is this not advised for the beginner? Can someone tell me?
Would it be something to do with the meaning of it, perhaps?
Okay.
Because they don't
Sure,
know the
meaning.
rules for
To be more
recitation.
specific, yeah, you're right, to the meaning, but to be more specific,
It could change the meaning if you don't appropriately start at the right place, perhaps.
okay, but try to think of the haraka. Too difficult, but why is it difficult? Because of the haraka, yes? So sometimes when you're joining, right, you might have to join directly to the word, okay? Yeah, so I'll leave it at that. Otherwise, it will be a little bit complicated. It will be a little bit difficult right now. But just know that it's a bit more difficult because you have to know the fatha dhamma kasra. And likewise, when you're joining ayat, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim, Maliki, right? So you have to know the endings. Is it a fatha? Is it a kasra? Is it a dhamma? If you do not know the endings, then do not try to join. Rather stop at the ayah, take a breath, and then continue with basmala. It's better to do it so as well, right? As in Surah Al-Fatiha, it's a conversation between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and making dua, right? So try to stop, reflect upon that meaning, and then carry on, inshallah. Number 3, in the third situation, there are also 4 possible ways of reciting. Isti'adha and Basmala. 3 are allowed, 1 is not allowed. Okay. What is the third scenario? Someone tell me.
Finishing
Start-
one surah and going to the next. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
So finishing one surah and going to the next.
Very good. So finishing one surah right at the end and going to the next surah, okay? So let's take an example of, let's look at Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas. What's the last ayah in Surah Al-Falaq? وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, and joining. So let's see. فصل الكل, separate everything, very easy. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. As you see, I'm taking a breath, right? Because if you're separating, right, and you're not taking a breath, what did I say this is? This is called sekt or sekta, right? S-A-K-T. This is a pause without, you can see I'm writing in the chat, a breath. This is not allowed, except for 4 places in the Quran, like Surah Yasin. مِن مَرْقَدِنَا هَذَا مَا وَعَدَ, or at the end of Surah Al-Kahf. وَلَمْ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ عِوَجًا قَيِّمًا. Here, if you take a breath, it's wrong. You understand? Okay, so separating everything. Number 2, wasl al-kull, joining everything. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Okay, so that's joining everything. And number 3 is to separate the first surah from the Basmala. To separate the first surah from the Basmala and join the Basmala to the beginning of the second surah. So you're going to basically stop the first surah from the Basmala, okay? Or you're going to disconnect. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Okay? Now, which way is not allowed then? وَصْلُ الْأَوَّلِ فَصْلُ الثَّانِي, which is joining the first and separating the second. Okay. So, وَصْلُ الْأَوَّلِ فَصْلُ الثَّانِي, just so we're learning. What does that mean? It's joining the first and separating the second. So, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدَ بِسْمِ اللَّهِ الرَّحْمَنِ الرَّحِيمِ قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ. Why is this not allowed? Because it will leave the impression that the Basmala is part of the end of the first surah, which is not the case. That's why. Okay? Because as we know, that the Basmala comes at the beginning of each surah, yes or no?
Yes.
It comes at the beginning of each surah. There's a difference of opinion amongst the scholars that is the Basmala part of the surah or not. Okay, so for those scholars who say it's part of the surah, and for those who say it's not, they obviously say that it's there to differentiate surah between surahs, right? So we all know that the Basmala is there at the beginning. So now if you're going to read the end of the ayah and then say the Basmala and then stop and then start the next surah, it becomes a little bit confusing. So this way is not allowed. Obviously, we know the Basmala should not be recited at the beginning of Surah At-Tawbah, which is Bara'atun min Allah. So you join right away, right? Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim, Bara'a, or you can connect it as well. And inshallah, we'll get to that. Any questions so far? If there are no questions, then we'll move on. Let's see here, child. Okay. I got one response. Anyone else? Any questions?
All good, thank you.
Okay. I want to hear more answers as well. Responses, you can write in the chat, not a problem. There we go.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yes, wa alaikum salam.
How are you, Sheikh? Inshallah, tamam.
Yes, alhamdulillah. Yes, who is this? Brother
Hi,
Yaqub?
Yaqub Muhammad.
Yes, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Oh, now I'm sorry. I'm gonna start this now. We come now, but
Oh, you started
late.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there is a recording, inshallah, that will be sent out. You can listen to it afterwards, inshallah, and try to catch up, okay?
Inshallah, Bismillah, inshallah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, let's look at a brief summary before we go out into, so the way it's going to work, and we'll explain this, is that We'll have I think it's called breakout rooms. So we'll separate some students with some teachers, inshallah, to practice what we learned. So what we're going to practice, I'll let you know, but let's do the summary. So when you're talking about isti'adha basmala, you're going to find yourself in one of three situations or conditions. Starting at the beginning of the surah, there are 4 ways. Middle of the surah, 2 ways are preferred for the beginner. If you're more advanced, you can do the other ones. And you've already started, you're ending one surah, joining the next. 3 ways are allowed, 1 is not allowed. And here there's the explanation. Okay, and the terminologies we've already explained. Fasl means separate, wasl means join. For those of you who do not know Arabic, this is going to help you, inshallah, right? Take the opportunity, take the time to learn these terminologies in Arabic. Very brief, few. Write them down, for example, on a Word document or whatever, or write them down. What is tajweed linguistically? Tartil we haven't learned yet, but we're going to get to it. What is harakat? What is mutaharrik? What is sakin? What is fasl? What is wasl? What is awwal? What is thani? What is kull? What is jami'? This is going to, inshallah, help you to learn Arabic, right? I always tell the students, if you're learning tajweed, inshallah, as we move forward, I'll give you some tips on how to learn Arabic as well, right? And keep in mind, you don't have to learn a lot to understand the Quran, right? There are some brothers who've done a fantastic job compiling the main words of the Quran. If you learn those, inshallah, you'll be able to understand. Anyway, so we're going back to Tajweed here. This is a nice summary. You can refer to it. What's the synopsis of the study of Tajweed? I'm just going to do this and then we're going to stop and go and work on the exercises, inshallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. Recite the Quran with tartil or do tartil. What is tartil? Please someone tell me. If you know, answer.
Melody.
I'm sorry?
Melody.
Tartil is melody, like a good tune, good voice. Okay, anyone else?
In a measured way.
In a measured way. Can you elaborate on that? What does measured way mean?
I forget the exact terminology, but I can't report it now. But yeah.
Okay, no worries. Yeah.
Is it beautiful recitation, maybe?
Okay, so yeah, the brother said that already. Orderly.
Okay.
What does orderly mean, though? Right? These are terminologies we use, but can we explain them? If you can't explain it, then you haven't understood it. Okay, recite in a slow, clear manner. Okay, that's understood. Sure. Pacing yourself. Okay. Okay, so the scholars differed. What does tartil mean, right? And some of you said, for example, to recite slowly. Okay, وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا وَرَتَّلْنَاهُ تَرْتِيلًا. Is it slowly, right? Now, what does the author say here? He says that, and he's taking this from Ali radiallahu anhu. Tartil is, and you'll see this this definition in a lot of books of Tajweed, because we're teaching Tajweed, so you'll see this definition here, that it is Tajweed al-huruf wa ma'rifat al-wuquf. Very beautiful definition. That it is knowing or excellence in the recitation of the letters and having knowledge of waqf. That's it. What is Tajweed again? Can someone tell me? We learned this in the beginning. What is Tajweed? It's 2 things, right? Makharij and
Where is coming from?
That's makharij, yes. And what's the other one? Sifat, there we go. Okay, good. So makharij and sifat. So this is it. So look at this definition here, because why are we reciting, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is commanding us. وَرَتِّلِ الْقُرْآنَ تَرْتِيلًا. So what is tartil? So this is a definition. Tajweed al-huruf, knowing the makharij, knowing the sifat. So right now, after this, we're going to study the makharij, and then we're going to do sifat. And then it's ma'rifat al-wuquf, having knowledge of the waqf, where to stop, how to stop. This is very important, because sometimes you can change the meaning if you stop in a wrong way, right? So that's very brief, very beautiful definition. Know Tajweed. What is Tajweed? Know the makharij, know the sifat, and know the knowledge of waqf, or the rulings of waqf, right? Of course, having said this, there are more definitions you may find in some tafasir. What is tartil, and so on and so forth. And those definitions are fine as well, right? Some scholars may say it means to recite slowly, right? Tartila, to recite nice and slowly. But then if you think about slowly, what does slowly mean, right? If you're going to recite slowly, then you need to be able to recite the letter, right? And how do you recite the letter? You need to know the makharij and sifa. There is no way you can recite a letter if you don't know the makharij and sifa. How are you going to recite it? If you don't know the ta comes from here and you don't know if it's light or heavy, you don't know how to recite it properly. Okay. And then obviously waqf is very important. Okay. Okay, this is makharij. We'll stop here, inshallah. All right. So what are we going to do now? So this class is not just me teaching. Okay. As you will see, this is the first class. It was a little bit longer. Normally, you're going to be doing a lot of application, a lot of practice, inshallah, as you will see. We're going to go ahead and into the breakout rooms, inshallah. I believe